Hello and welcome to the Captain Stevens channel. My name is Colin McGregor Stevens and I am a retired Canadian Army infantry captain and also the curator of an official Canadian Armed Forces military museum. As such, I get access sometimes to interesting collections, private or museum collections, and today we're going to have a look at an original, matching, excellent condition Long Branch No. 4 Mark I Star T. This rifle was made in Canada in 1945 on contract for the British. Now, before we get into any details, I'll mention at the end of the show, I'll show you some rare accessories for this rifle. And we're going to start with a safety check. We make sure there's nothing in the chamber and nothing in the magazine. Okay, so the No. 4 rifles were developed in the early 1930s. Trials rifles were produced, tested, feedback given by the troops, and then some tweaks on the design were made. Mass production began in 1941. In England, this was done at Birmingham Small Arms, B.S.A., Royal Ordnance Factory, Maltby, and Royal Ordnance Factory, Fazakerley. As well, under Lend-Lease, they were produced by Stephen Savage in the United States. Canada set up a factory at Long Branch in Canada. This was Small Arms Limited, and that is where this rifle was made. So for snipers, at the beginning of World War II, the British and Canadian Commonwealth countries realized that they lacked a proper sniper rifle. The rifles on hand were generally World War I leftovers, not many of them. So it was decided to build a sniper rifle based on a No. 4 rifle. This rifle has a flat left side wall, which made it ideal for attaching a telescope. The No. 32 telescope had just been developed, was intended to be mounted on a Bren gun, light machine gun. However, apparently that never happened, but it suited this rifle quite well. It's a very durable scope, heavy, but very durable, and allows for elevation and for windage adjustments. And it can be held on just by 2 screws on the side, which I'll just undo here. And it just lifts off. So with the rifle itself, it's a standard No. 4 Mark I Star. The Mark I Star difference between that and a No. 4 Mark I was simply on how the bolt was removed. It was a way to speed up production. This has the Mark I back sight, which has the very fine calibration, very fine adjustments, and could be used very, very accurately. But the battle sight, which stood up about 1/4 of an inch at the back, has been removed. It's been milled off. And the reason is that it would prevent the scope from fitting. They wanted to mount the scope in line with the barrel, unlike earlier examples where they're often mounted off to the left side. Mounting it over the barrel and as low as possible were ways to increase the accuracy. A wooden cheek rest was added, held on by 2 screws, and this would line up the sniper's eye with the scope. These rifles were fitted with a leather sling, and interestingly, it's an American model of 1907 sling. Many holes mean that the claws can be shifted around to adjust it for the greatest comfort and stability in shooting. A sling swivel was added by January 1945, just in front of the magazine, so the sling could be detached from the rear, sling swivel, and fitted here. Just another way for the sniper to use the rifle. The sling would be to give it a bracing effect so that the rifle would not move as much, therefore you have better accuracy. The telescope has a serial number, number 22-C in this case. The rifle has a scope, would be mated to the rifle, and the intent was that the 2 pieces always stay together. That way you have the greatest possible accuracy, because the telescope would be collimated with the barrel, perfectly aligned with the barrel. If it's off by just a little bit, then you get, the further you're shooting, the greater the error that creeps in. We're going to look at some detailed markings on the rifle now. Because it's a long branch, it has long branch manufacturer markings on the buttstock under the pistol grip and under the forend. The forend had to be very carefully fitted, especially for a sniper rifle. That was very important for accuracy. And what we have under the muzzle here on the wood is a tiny Maltese cross. That mark apparently designated a special fitting. And it appears on some, but not all, sniper rifles, and it also appears in various locations. Finding it is a nice feature. The back sight has a C-broad arrow, which is a Canadian issue marking. It also has the square-shouldered S, which was the mark of Stephen Savage in the United States. Now, Canada did make the Mark I sights early in the war, and some sniper rifles have Mark I sights made in Canada, made in Long Branch. This one and others like it tend to have sights made by Stephen Savage. So somehow those sights were shipped up. And there's a common belief that a lot of American parts were shipped up to Canada. Personally, I don't believe that. I have not seen evidence of that. The most I've seen is the sights, but other than that, the Canadian rifles use Canadian parts. Now, the markings we have is number 4 Mark I star, and then a T has been added. That was the final mark to indicate that the model number had now been changed, the designation. Long Branch, by the way, is 2 words, not 1, and the year, 1945. Serial number over here, 90L8xxx, repeated on the bracket. We have the letters KB stamped into the wood here, which appears to be one of the Long Branch inspectors. And we have the C-broad arrow, including on the scope pad at the front here. Now, the scope itself is Canadian made. It is a telescope sighting C number 32 Mark III. The C tells you that it's a Canadian made version. It's interchangeable with the British, so we'll find after repairs have been done and rebuilds, a rifle might come out of that facility with a Canadian rifle and a British scope, or a British rifle with a Canadian scope. Collectors always like to find scopes that are the original matching ones from when the factory first assembled the rifle, as in this case. COS 2039A is the optical store's number, again a C prefix for Canadian. R.E.L. for the manufacturer, Research Enterprises Limited, which was also in the Toronto area, which was handy to Long Branch. Canada, we have 1945 as the date, and then 22-C is the serial number for the scope. The C again denoting Canada. Okay, now we'll have a look at some of the extras. The telescopes would come with scope caps made of leather. There are several versions. This one is the last version. And you have a stud, and the idea being you can just slip this over, and that gives you a little extra slippage of about a ½ inch, a little easier to remove from the scope. I've chosen to leave it that way because of it's delicate and I don't want to break it. Made in Canada. They were designed in Britain, but Canada also produced them. So a Canadian-made rifle would originally leave the factory or be issued with a Canadian-made chest. However, in service, you could end up with a Canadian rifle in a British chest or a British rifle in a Canadian chest. So the Canadian chests are distinguished by the leather handle, which has 2 rows of stitching on it, and the leather is thicker and stronger than on the British chests. On the British chest, the leather is simply folded, and the handles are frequently broken after 75 years. The hinges on top of the chest are fitted with 4 screws. On the British chest, they have 3 screws. And sometimes you'll find the metal end protective piece on the lid on the Canadian chests. Now, normally, you would not have the rifle and scope number permanently marked on the chest. What they would do is use a metal holder like this and tack it on to the chest, usually on one end, sometimes on the front. And what they would do is then take a little form, a little card, write the serial number of the rifle only onto it, usually in pencil, but occasionally in pen, slide it in, and then fold over one of the tabs to hold it in. That way it's marked temporarily as to which rifle is in the chest. The reason for that is that if a rifle is shipped back for repair and then the depot needs a chest to send another rifle back out to that unit, well, rather than dig through a pile of wooden chests to find the matching one, they just take the same chest, pull that card, discard it, get another card, write the serial number of the rifle on it, slide it in, fold the tab over, and off the rifle goes. And what we're going to do now is put the genie back in the bottle. So when we open the chest, you'll notice there's no label here. On the British sniper rifle chest, there's usually a label of instructions. The Canadian chests rarely had that. Now, the early scope cases were steel. By 1944-45, they started using these Mark II version. So it is a number 15 Mark I chest, a number 8 Mark II scope case. It's made of canvas and has a tin or sheet metal liner inside. We squeeze it, and then it's a juggling process to get the scope to go in. There it went in easily, that's good. Fold over the top flap, and then we bring over the strap. Some of these this will fit, but some of them just do not want to fit. So there we have the strap. There are replicas made of these cases. They're very floppy from what I've seen. This one is marked Canadian number 8 Mark II COS, the optical stores number 2578A, and then R.E.L. Research Enterprises Limited Canada, and a British broad arrow. Because remember, this rifle was made for the British Army on contract by the Canadians. So I'm going to put the case in first. So I open up the chest. We have a rotating bar here, which is used to help hold the chest in position, or the scope case rather. So I find if I slide it in this way, a bit of juggling is required, and tuck it in, drop this down, which helps hold it. Now I want to put the rifle in. Muzzle goes in this direction. The British talked about in the instructions of always removing the sling, but that's very awkward, especially the front part of it. So I only undo the rear part of the sling. I curl it up about halfway. Now I want to fit the rifle in. I drop the sling in first, try and position it so that it allows the rifle to go down to its full depth, because these wooden blocks will only accept the rifle, not the rifle and the sling. Then I can close it, snap a padlock on, it's a label if need be, and off it goes. So there we have it. The genie is back in the bottle. The original Canadian number 4 Mark I Star T sniper rifle in the 90L series, and fitted into its Canadian-made chest, number 15 Mark I, and its scope case, the Canadian one, C number 8 Mark II. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. And I do hope that you want to come back and look at other videos on my channel in the future. Thank you and goodbye.